Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another look at all the web of um, things going on in the world, kind of related to the US election, but yes, related to that, but it's also the net is kind of widening in that respect. But before we dive in, I do want to thank YouTube channels Psychic Sleuth, Moonlight Energy, Annette Dion, and Denise Psychic Sleuth, who I think is a different channel to the first one, and also Rosie Insights, who've all given us a shout out and sent followers our way. But of course, these videos are also posted on Kathy's YouTube channel, which is Professional Aquarian. So, please go and subscribe to all the channels. Go and listen to them as well, because we all kind of align and agree that something's going to change. And one more thing before we all just dive in and start talking about stuff is the news of cable cutting. Underwater cables were cut between Germany, Finland, and Sweden. And it's looking like Russia was the source of that. And that's just very Pluto in Aquarius, communication kind of cutting and internet. And we'll probably be looking more at those wider webs as well as we look at charts. So anything else anybody wants to say before we start looking at charts?
Well, I'd like to set a framework before we actually look at charts. I want to alert people to some times that could be very interesting. Just be on the lookout. Even mark it on your calendars. One of them is right now we're in what's called a station. Mercury, the planet that rules communication and getting around and communication vehicles. So the cables could conceivably be part of this as well, even though they're more electronic. It is in the sign of foreigners, policy, international relations, politics, and Mercury could represent the votes. At any rate, Mercury is going to be uh, retrograde starting on the 25th. And a lot of things seem to be, they might be a slowed in time sensation as it retrogrades. And it's going to be retrograde until December 15th. And there could be opportunities for do-overs, for discovering confusion, communication problems, outright deceit. There could be some transportation issues. And as it moves towards the end of its retrograde, there's another little cluster, a big cluster actually, that I want to alert people to. And I'm very curious what Louise and Andy have to say about this. And that is on December 6th, Mars, which rules attacks, the military, how we use our energy, men, stations retrograde in the sign of Leo. And then Venus, which rules money, what we value, women, moves into Aquarius and fuses with Pluto in Aquarius, while Neptune stations direct. Neptune rules how we're all interconnected. It rules lies, confusion, deceit, all kinds of things.
And
And by the time,
and Ceres,
and
one
the
of my
seas,
favorites, will also be at zero Aquarius on that day. So,
oh, Ceres also.
mm-hmm,
Okay. And
mm-hmm,
Neptune rules the oceans. So
mm-hmm,
that strikes me as a really fertile time for a lot of things going on because by then Mercury and Mars will both be retrograde. So it's like double investigation. And then who knows
mm-hmm,
what Neptune's direct station is going to start bringing to the surface. And
mm-hmm.
then what does anybody have to say about Venus and Ceres and Pluto all fusing? Any
Well,
any thoughts on that?
I've been looking at that triple conjunction for quite a long time because it happens to be happening on my husband's birthday, so I noticed it. And I've always felt that it's kind of a very healing coming together kind of energy of pieces of the puzzle really kind of coming together at that zero degree of Aquarius. And I'm starting to see a lot of those pieces of the puzzle come together, and it's a lot to talk about, but I think you and I, well, all three of us, we kind of watch what's happening in the world and pick up these nuggets and we go, oh, that's connected to there. And that's very Aquarian, which is kind of about connecting all these puzzle pieces, if you like, in very many ways. And that and the Neptune station, I agree with you. It's kind of going to reveal a lot of things. And Mars, of course, stationing retrograde, is kind of going to take a look again at a few things, because retrogrades do. I do want to mention, though, that the Mercury retrograde is in what's called a mutual reception with Jupiter retrograde in Gemini, and they're going to oppose each other during that as well. So I think some big news and information and things are going to come out because of that as well. So
Gemini does rule communication, and Jupiter makes things huge. So I'm sorry, Andy, you have thoughts.
No, the fact that they're inverted with Sagittarius and Gemini, and the fact, and Mercury and Jupiter, they're in their opposite places, I think is really significant. I also think that Venus and Pluto at 0 Aquarius is going to be a big deal. And I think it's going to relate to the ways that people try to bond together, because right now people are afraid. They're trying to figure out who's their tribe, where am I safe, what should I do, how do I navigate? So I think that will also be significant. And we talked about this the last two sessions, and it relates to what Louise said about Mars hitting the node of the US chart. And I think that when Mars goes retrograde there on the 6th, that period from the 6th to the 15th will be incredibly significant. I would think that there's a lot going on. I would think a lot comes to the surface during that period. And I do think that there's a lot of tension, but that tension could be a catalyst for something good. So simplistically, I think that things are going to heat up the first 2 to 3 weeks of December, but specifically from the 6th to the 15th, I think is a big deal. So that's my shorthand take on it.
I agree. And I always, when we're talking about that 0 degree of Aquarius, and I'll just share it so people can take a screenshot if they haven't seen it before. I can't tell you what a hot degree this degree is and has been since 2020. So there was Mars-Saturn conjunction at 0 Aquarius, Jupiter-Saturn, the Great Mutation, Venus-Mars conjunction, Sun and Pluto ingressed on January 20th, 2024, at the same time to that degree. Mercury-Pluto on February the 5th this year, February the 14th, Mars-Pluto conjunction. And then we had the last Venus-Pluto conjunction was also at 0 Aquarius. So, people can take a screenshot of that if you want, and look back at the dates for their own information. So, I just think things are kind of piling up.
And the one thing I would add to that is that Venus-Pluto conjunction is going to be where Pluto was. No, it's going to be opposite where Mars was on November 5th. Mars was at 0 Leo. So Venus-Pluto opposite Mars, November 5th.
Which is probably suggestive of people bonding together. I think that is the likely outcome of this election, is that people make the effort to really make connections, and in a way that's really almost semi-tribal. And I think that actually that's a very positive thing. And I think Venus-Pluto Ceres right there, that's right exactly on my Chiron at 0 Aquarius. So I think that this is going to be a pivotal point in the ways in which people relate to one another and the ways in which they assess, who do I want in my life? Who do I trust? How do I go about my day-to-day living? What are the choices that are important to me? So I look at this, even though it's coming out of a little bit of a disruption, as a pivotal time in setting the stage for how people operate for the next 15, 20 years. So to me, it's all good, even though it comes within the context of a lot of tension and a lot of uncertainty.
Oh yeah, I
I'm still
agree.
optimistic, as
Oh
you two are as well.
yeah, and I think we can take that out as well to kind of global tribes, if you like, or alliances, whatever you want to call
Absolutely.
it. So yeah, like for example, NATO working with um, Joe Biden at the moment. In fact, we might look at the NATO new Secretary General's chart because he is actually meeting with Trump today, or he has done. So anyway, we've got so much we would love to look at. Some of it might have to wait till next time, but where shall we start? You guys, let's.
Andy, you choose.
I'm just going to defer to you two. I'm really looking forward to digging into Peter Thiel's chart because I think Peter Thiel's chart is really instructive as to how things are likely to play out. And I think his chart's really interesting just from a chart explication standpoint. But I want to kind of roll off of you two and whatever you think is the launching point is where we should go. But Peter Thiel and Mark Milley, they clang me as having that they're more important than might seem on the surface. And I want to look at them later as we get into the show.
Well, I'm happy to start with Peter Thiel. I think we have to combine him with Vance because it's pretty well known that Peter Thiel has been backing Vance all along, right back to his election in whatever year it was when he was elected, 2022.
A year and a half ago. Oh,
yeah, he's only been in since 2022. So I think let's start then with Peter Thiel and let's have a look at him. Now we do not have a time, so let me edit this to actually put his sun on the first so that people can not get caught up in houses and placements like that. So I've put his sun on the first there for that. So he was born in Germany, interestingly, where Trump's family comes from, and we all know the history of some aspects of Germany and Germans. But anyway, and he was part of the PayPal mafia, which Rosy Insights have been looking at as well. So we can't look at everything. So I think we're all kind of teaming up to look at the all these people together because I think it's a big web of corruption personally. But anyway, thoughts on Thiel and what's happening. I can put transits round if you like.
What jumped out immediately to me is his Mars in Sagittarius, down there at the bottom of the chart. Mars is how you push yourself forward. Sagittarius has international overtones to it. The Mercury retrograde starts on his Mars, and the degree of 21 Sagittarius will be familiar to people who've been following astrology because that's where Trump's moon and his south node, his default way of being, are.
For sure.
So that tells me that this Mercury retrograde could very well have some storylines that bring him more and more to light.
And one thing that jumps out at me apart from that, because that's the degree of my sun, is that I love the centaurs, and I have this theory that the centaurs have come in to kind of reveal a lot of things and kind of heal us as humanity if we take the opportunity. But anyway, Nessus, the revealer of abuses of power, is at 11 Gemini, which is where Jupiter is going to station direct as well. So.
Oh, that's very interesting. What I have also marked is his moon is either at the end of Capricorn or at the beginning of very early degrees of Aquarius, which means he's got something Plutonian that either has just happened or is about to happen or in the process of happening. So that's something to watch. If it's moon in Capricorn, my experience with people with moon in Capricorn is that they did not get nice, yummy, cushy, lovey stuff when they were kids, and they're very kid and they value themselves through results and work. And they can sometimes be incredibly cold people. Moon in Aquarius could also have a distant, cold, detached. All you Moon in Aquarius people, do not argue with me. They can have a cold, detached, not being at all concerned with the impact on people because your vision, your futuristic vision is so great, and that would bring the technology into it. So who knows?
And if it's zero Aquarius, this conjunction of Pluto and Venus would be smack dab on his moon.
Yes.
And as well, his Chiron is at 2637 Pisces. So Neptune is in a station direct on his core wound. So you know, it's he's getting big hits. I kind of feel like something's going to come out, and he's obviously very connected to Vance and Trump because his Jupiter in Leo is conjunct both their ascendants because they have very similar charts. So,
well, two other things about what might be coming out. You had mentioned Nessus at 11 Gemini. Well, on Christmas Eve, Jupiter will be at 13 Gemini in conjunct to his Mercury at 12 Scorpio, and Jupiter will be squaring Saturn at 13 Pisces, which will be trining his Mercury. Something could be coming out and be a governmental, something involving communication, something involving money behind the scenes, something involving government saying no.
Yeah.
Putting a lid on things.
Now, you know, I see these people as all players in this big cosmic game that's playing out. And just one other thing that jumps out at me is that his nodes are exactly on Kamala Harris's full moon.
Oh, interesting. And his sun is squared Tim Walz's sun. I would like to also point out his Saturn at 8. This is something that's going to end up in a couple of other charts. His Saturn at 8 Aries is within a degree of where the lunar eclipse in March will be that ends the Aries Libra eclipse cycle. So there's some kind of revelation chapter ending and path splitting coming for him next year.
And of course, it's very close to where we had the last eclipses too. So, you know, so I really think there's kind of things that are going to be found out, some things coming out, things found out. Any thoughts, Andy?
One of the challenges I face is, of course, that I can't actually read the chart because of my phone. They're too small, but I'm trying to remember what I saw Peter Thiel's chart. And so if you two will help me for just a second. I believe his Jupiter is like 28.
Leo.
Where's his Jupiter?
28 Leo.
28 Leo. Okay, so it's right there at Trump's ascendant, and it's conjuncting his Mars in the 12th house side. But isn't his Uranus then like 26 Libra?
It's Virgo, 26 Virgo.
Exactly. 26 Virgo. Okay. All right. So
I will also say that 28
like
Leo is the degree of the Great American Eclipse in 2017. So this is all stories that are starting to unfold from. Well, anyway, yeah.
They just all seem interconnected to me in terms of the ways in which they're trying to set up a certain kind of frame of reference for how things operate. And getting into this kind of Gilded Age kind of mentality. I think when you look at sort of karmic patterns, there's not just that people share a past life together, but they share a certain kind of resonance. So Thiel, Elon Musk, all of them, they have a certain kind of flavor to the ways in which they operate. And to me, that is developmental over time. And I think that these exact interchanges with Trump's Mars and rising sign and with his full moon with with his sun moon opposition and his nodes, to me, they're all connected. And I would expect that Thiel either wins big or loses big. And I think that the ways in which a lot of these financial people, the Silicon Valley sort of mafia, the way that they direct this, they either stand to, just like what Musk said, if Trump loses, he's not in a good space. I believe that that's going to have tremendous implications. And to me, that does not happen until after the first of the year, which is why I persist in my theories. And I think Kathy's sort of on the same page, that things don't happen at the same time frame that we expect for January 20th. I think that things get pushed back, and I still think a lot of things come out relative to financiers trying to influence the election and what those global kinds of players, Putin, China, whatever, how they all come together. And to me, it's going to be really entertaining from mid-December onwards through probably March or April. So that's why I think that Thiel is such a pivotal player here, to me.
There are two other things about his chart that jump out that could tie into that, Andy. His sun is at 17 Libra, which is on top of Trump's Jupiter and trine his Uranus. So he's a good connection for Trump. And his Neptune at 22 degrees Scorpio is on top of Vance's Mars. Vance has Venus in Leo on his ascendant, square Mars in Scorpio. Thiel's Neptune is on that Mars. I think he's some kind of like almost mythological level figure. And there's some understanding here that Venus-Mars square to me spells incredible sexual conflict. And that's as far as I will intimate with this.
Well, I'm going to put Vance's chart up with him, by the way, because we have a time for Vance, and so Vance's moon is conjunct Peter Thiel. So I'm putting Vance on the inside and Peter Thiel on the outside. Vance's moon is conjunct Peter Thiel's sun, and so and the Peter Thiel's Jupiter is on Vance's ascendant. And so they have these deep connections too. But look where Neptune is stationing, shared resources. There's something
opposite Uranus, yeah.
I read all these things as well, and I'm reading or listening to Autocracy Inc. by Anne Applebaum at the moment, and the WEBS are amazing. A lot of it goes back to Putin, though, and his desires to rebuild the Russian Empire.
What the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc countries back under fold. That's what I think they want.
Well, he wants it to double all the way through Europe, actually. So if you really look at it, and those of you that fear war, I invite you to listen to Rosie Insights. They've looked into this. But I invite you to consider that we're all already in what people describe as a hybrid war. It's kind of, you're not declared war, but warlike actions are happening already, like cutting cables and things like that. So anyway.
One thing I see, now that you have done this, is let's talk a little bit about Mars again. Mars entered Cancer, beginning of I should know exactly when it did it. Anyway, Mars is spending months going from Cancer, a little bit into Leo, backtracking, and then going into Cancer again. And as it has done that, it's already once trined, which is an easy flow, Thiel's Neptune on top of Vance's Mars. And it's going to come back there in February, and it'll be there again when? Early April, late March. Anyway, so there are two more passes. There's more to this story.
Oh, there definitely is. And I don't see everything kind of coming out all at once. Like, although I think, you know, if things play out as we see ultimately, I think we'll find out what is happening that we aren't seeing, going back to Biden's kind of solar return chart and everything, and our feeling that, you know, he is kind of saying, you know, no, this is not being, we're not being taken down, kind of thing, you know. But anyway, I think that might happen all at once. I think they're putting their ducks in a row, but generally, I think, you know, this is, but also Peter Thiel's North Node is on another centaur on Vance's Pholus, and that Pholus is cause and effect or consequences, tower moments, things coming out of the box that can't be put back in. You know, it's almost like these people have kind of, they think they're kind of allies, although I think I don't necessarily think any of them actually like each other. I think it's almost like, you know, cosmically they've come together to bring something big out into the open that's been happening that we're not seeing. So anyway.
Well, they have a similar vibratory pattern, but they're not on similar paths.
No.
So that typically, from the laws of physics kind of standpoint, is going to run into kind of a collision at some point. I think they're going to collide. And I think that what's going to happen is that even though they have similar dynamic of what they want to create, their specific interests will clash. And that's why I think that it's more likely that it's almost like a bad James Bond movie. And I think it's going to be really, I persist in my theory, which I've held for a long time, that at the end, a lot of things come out with Trump that reverses everything kind of all at one time. And I believe all these financiers trying to stake their claims there's problems there. It's not all legal. And I think that we're going to see more and more of that in the days to come. Part of this big push is to suppress the actual investigatory process into the behind the scenes financial dealings. And so while there's still a window to do that, which is over the next few months, I think that's why this December 6th period onward, I think heats up so dramatically. And I think that those things are likely to come out incrementally. And it would not make sense for an investigation, especially into something akin to white collar crime, to be revealed all at one time. It's going to come out drip by drip by drip.
Yeah.
Would Musk be the logical next one to look at?
Yes, I think he would.
Yeah, I would think so, because the other thing about Musk and Thiel is that they're coming from countries outside the United States that both have a recent history of racial suppression, South Africa and Germany. And I think they're, again, sort of birds of a feather flock together kind of logic. And they're egotistical. They are driven. There's a certain amount of hubris that goes with each man, I think. And again, I can't see the charts because my eyes don't work here on my little phone. But I would be curious, because I have to hear you two say it. And then that's why if I look like I'm falling, kind of coming in later, I'm hearing you say the degrees and then I'm trying to picture it in my head. But yeah, Kathy, I would think that there is a tremendous similarity in their energetic signatures. And you two will be able to see that when you look at the charts better than me. But I think, yeah, he would make sense to me as the next logical step, because all those and his relationship, again, what Louise brought up initially, cutting the cables. Does that mean that Starlink takes a bigger place here? To me, that is an act of aggression. It is an act of war that Russia has done that, because a lot of Sweden and Finland's defense systems are going to be tied into those cables. So there's a lot happening here.
The first thing that jumps out at me, and of many things, is that the Pluto ingress with Venus and Ceres coming up to it at 0 Aquarius is it's making a wedge aspect, but he's got this Saturn Neptune opposition in Sagittarius, so his Neptune's at 0 Sag and Saturn at 1 Gemini, and even though it's kind of so-called supportive aspects, that still screams to me that something coming out, some information more being revealed. But anyway, you can.
I thought that too, and look, Pluto is opposing his Juno, which does have a lot to do with agreements.
It does. Contracts, agreements, absolutely. Yeah. So his Juno is at one Leo, Andy. So you can tune into that. I'm going to put Putin with him in a minute, but of course he's also got a Venus in Gemini, and Nessus, again, revealer of abuses of power, and Ceres in Gemini. So the Mercury retrograde is going to oppose all that. And the Mercury is stationing retrograde pretty close to an opposition to his Venus Nessus kind of thing. And I've heard rumors already that, and I think it was Rosie Insights kind of saw it as well, that Putin is kind of a bit pissed off with Elon or Elmo or whatever, Leon, whatever you want to call him, because he's got overexcited and is just, giving away too much. He's kind of like he's almost like co-president. He's being called co-president right now. So,
Well, look at what Neptune is doing. All right. So Neptune's in his 9th, foreign matters, dealings, and it's on top of what? Is that Pholos?
That's Chariklo. And she's a beautiful healing energy. So, what gets revealed by Neptune stationing on as Chiron's wife, basically. She's kind of the cosmic doula or space holder.
And that's trying his Jupiter in Scorpio, which would be massive amounts of money. He is, if not one of the wealthiest men on the planet. That's at 27 Scorpio, Andy, which is, and so that Chariklo is square.
Is that in his 8th?
No, it's in his 5th.
But it's that Neptune is also opposing his Pluto. So
his Pluto. And squaring his Ceres, right? Or is that Demeter? What is that?
No, that's Ceres. Yeah. Well, Demeter's similar energy. Ceres. So the Neptune station, so for you, Andy, he has Ceres at 26 Gemini in the 12th house, which is not if his time's that accurate. And so his Jupiter's at 27 Scorpio in the 5th house, and then Pluto at 27 Virgo in the 3rd house, which is really about information, and Pluto reveals the shadow as well. So that Neptune, that period is just hitting him a big chunk.
What you're talking about is forming a T-square. So Neptune on top of his Chariklo in the 9th house is opposing his Pluto, money and backroom deals and big power planet in the house of communication, and they're both pressuring Ceres in the sign of communication. I would say something's coming out. Once, probably at the Neptune station.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like he's almost kind of showing it himself. I think he's just kind of like, just think of that image of him on the stage with 45, jumping up and down like a little boy. He's kind of got all excited and is kind of playing his cards too openly, like we talked about last time, like these people are doing.
Well, his 12th house is the house of self-sabotage and self-undoing. So he's in a sense his own worst enemy.
In many ways. Isn't it interesting?
And I think that's a theme.
His natal Mercury is on the sun of the USA, by the way. But anyway,
right?
Yeah, sorry, Andy, go on.
Andy,
no, I think that's a theme with a lot of these men. Not with Putin. Putin's from a very different orientation. Putin psychologically is a whole different kind of cat. But Thiel and Musk and Vance and Trump, they're not in that same vein, and that's why I think that they may think that, they're 2 feet from the finish line. It's a done deal, which also could lead them to make mistakes or to get sort of overly enthusiastic. I persist that the clashes that there are enough forces within the United States and throughout NATO that are in opposition to this to try to contain it and have some sort of systemic control over it, that there are a lot of things that are being done in a hurry that could backfire on some of the people in alignment with Trump. That's my hope, but it's also my expectation as well. And it relates to the personalities. It relates to this kind of 8th and 12th house dynamic that we see in so many of them.
And I would say telling the wife of the president of Brazil that you'll fix the election there because she said F you to him, that's a little bit of a tell.
Isn't it? And I just want to mention one thing with all of this, like playing their cards too early. I talked about it briefly last time, that all these out of bounds planets that we have happening now. We've got Mercury, Venus, Ceres, and then the moon twice a month, and we're at lunar maximum, which means they're further out of bounds, which happens every 18.5 years, is like bringing this kind of out of control energy. I've never heard so many talking heads on news reports say he's breaking all the norms, he's breaking all the bounds. And this is what out of bounds planets do. They can do it in good ways or less good ways, but anyway, just a little kind of collective kind of energy. It's the out of bounds planets are kind of encouraging them, if you like, or they're feeling into it to just go too far too soon.
What if we look at Putin and then end with Mark Milley, because I think that will be much more
positive.
Yes,
I agree. Let's look at Putin, because a lot of evidence is kind of coming that I don't think Putin's kind of individually gathered everybody together to kind of do things as a collective. I think he plays people and gets, anyway, he's but anyway, here's his chart. I will say there is a bit of disagreement about whether it's possibly his correct birth date and time, but this is the chart that people use, right? So go for it, guys.
So his sun at 13 Libra squares the U.S. sun diametrically, fighting our interests. His Saturn at 17 Libra is on Trump's Jupiter and the U.S. Saturn.
Doesn't he also impact Thiel? Doesn't Thiel have something to 17 Libra?
Yeah, his sun.
And Vance's moon at 19 Libra is close as well. So yeah, they're definitely all speaking to each other.
His Mars is at 26 Sagittarius, so that's in an easy flow with Trump's ascendant and Mars and Vance's ascendant and Venus and squaring
and
Vance's
Thiel's Jupiter.
And Thiel's Jupiter. It's right there on Thiel's Jupiter, right.
He's got Pallas Athena. Neptune's going to station
that's going to be
on his. I kind of think there's justice coming for the things that he's done personally.
Pluto at 0 Aquarius is trining his moon, and actually it's going to be moving. It's a wide T-square with that is Vesta right there on his ascendant, but definitely his relationship axis, the first and seventh, the ascendant and descendant. So there's something going on here where there could be communications that force changes in his alliances or his role.
I think so. And to go back to giving the shout out for Rosy Insights, they see the Putin era kind of ending. He's well, anyway, can I quickly share Alexander Dugin's chart? I showed it to you.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So for those that don't know Alexander Dugin, he's called Putin's brain. I've been following the guy for a while. He's a philosopher, basically, but he wrote a book called Foundations of Geopolitics in 1997, which was the same year that Putin really rose to power. And this book is basically given to the military in their training and things. And it's called Putin's Playbook. Whether they actually kind of work together or not, I don't know. But physically as people. It predicted or kind of said, this is what we should do to create Eurasia, he calls it, and to recreate the Russian Empire. And Brexit was predicted in it, the annexation of Crimea, various other things that Russia has done since 1997 are all in that book. And part of it is to create this chaos and discord in the West, basically, not just the US, but also Europe. And so anyway, just look at his chart where he has this Aquarius energy, 0, Mercury, Saturn, 0, Aquarius.
That's my way is the way. I know. Shut up. What you're talking about, that's very, very fixed. Very doctrinaire. Doctrinaire.
And he's got interviews on YouTube, and he posts on Twitter, which I've now left, but he is dogmatic that kind of the West is Babylon, and that Russia's going to take it down. So I just love how the charts, his nodes are in a reverse nodal axis with Putin's. So whether they actually work together physically or not, their charts are working together to kind of, create what they want, which is the Russian Empire, basically.
Well, the Pluto in Aquarius on his Mercury and Saturn is activating in conjunct the adjustment aspect between his communication planet and how he imposes authority, and his natal Uranus up there in the 10th house. So part of his role as Trump also has Uranus in the 10th house, is to be an agitator, a disruptor. And Pluto in Aquarius is doing something with that, either really empowering it or, I don't know, bringing it to an end. We don't know.
We don't know. Timelines are kind of funny, and energy is mutable, but I think all of us intuitively kind of feel like the West will win only in the way that they will protect what we have already, I think, is how it feels to me. What about you, Andy, with your wonderful...
I mean, this is really reminiscent of the Nazis in Liebesborn, which was that the Nazis created this narrative that the Slavic people, I mean, they're basically running over the same people, didn't deserve to be there, and that the Germans, in order to make the world order work, needed to have this space to expand. And what he's proposing is very similar dynamically to what was being proposed in the 1920s and 30s with Nazi Germany. And it's a similar dynamic. And I think there's still a lot of animosity towards like Gorbachev and splitting up the Soviet Union in the early 90s. And I think they want that Soviet Union bloc, including Ukraine and Poland and the Czech Republic and all that's like natural Russia. That's what I was born into. That's the way it's supposed to be.
They think it's theirs. They just really believe it's
theirs.
Yes,
they think by divine right, just as the Germans did. And so I look at most of what's happening in the United States with QAnon and all the rest of it as an act of war, just like cutting the cables. There's a German concept, World Fair Warfare, uh, and a Weltanschauung or something like that.
Weltanschauung,
And
yeah.
So how do you pronounce that, Kathy?
Weltanschauung, which is your
Oh,
view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay. Worldview warfare. So that was a precept of Germany, and I think that that's what's happening to some degree with Russia and the Russian Federation.
Mm-hmm.
So, long story short, this dude is a player because he is impacting the mode of activity of a whole group of people because he's giving them an anchor upon which to hang their aspirations for world power. And he's almost legitimizing it as like, this is the way it should be. So we're not doing anything bad. We're simply putting it back to the way it was supposed to be. And these are the steps that we go through in order to enact that. So,
and if
it's
anybody
what's
wants,
old is new again.
If anybody wants to read more about Dugin, there are summaries of the book Foundations of Geopolitics online. I've been kind of tracking that for a bit, and then when I looked at his chart and what's coming up, I was like, whoa.
Can I mention two things before we leave this chart?
Mm.
The first one is that the Mars retrograde is going to go back over Putin's Uranus.
Do you just want me to?
No, just leave it up. Just leave it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to go back over Putin's Uranus.
It is.
2 times.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that seems significant. And secondly,
in fact,
Uranus,
doesn't it station direct at 17 Cancer?
At 17, that is correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is Uranus.
Mm-hmm.
So that means the period around February 23rd will be really hot because that's when the station actually happens. So a little before, a little after. The second thing is Uranus in the sky is at the end of Taurus. And look at Dugin's chart.
Mm.
What is your little guy there? What is that again? Nessus?
This one's Hygeia.
Dugin's Dugin's chart.
Oh, Dugin's. Yeah, that's his Nessus. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. So Uranus has been flirting with that.
It has. Well, it's stationed retrograde at 27 Taurus. So we'll be going back there when it moves forward. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's that revealing abuses of power yet again. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and one final thing.
Kathy, is his Mars at 17 Cancer?
His Uranus is. Putin's Uranus is at 17. Well, it's at 18 Cancer.
It's at 18 Cancer.
So that's a square to all those aspects at 17 Libra.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
all those people, tension. All those people.
Tension that speeds up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So shall we look at Milley or any more?
Well, one other thing. Dugin's, that's Eris, right? In the 6th house, that thing that looks like it's an arrow going to the ground. All right. Eris. So his Eris, his troublemaker, his I'm going to stir things up. The Aries lunar eclipse in March is right on that. That's a chapter ending. That's bringing things to light. So he's a player in all this stuff that'll be going down February through April.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll shut up now about this.
Okay. No, well, there's loads.
Interesting. Thank you.
There's even loads more I could say too, but these two, Putin and Dugin, again, are we predicting kind of the end of them? But I kind of feel like it's the end of their story or something, the end of what they've been trying to do. So, I'm not predicting anything about them personally. So,
so I'm going to go back to a prediction I made a couple years ago, real fast. It ties into this. Prior to invading Ukraine, I said that I believed that Russia would invade Ukraine, but that rather than be some cakewalk, they would run over Ukraine would actually fight back, and it didn't work out for Russia as they planned, and that the complications growing out of Ukraine would have a negative impact on Putin's power base in Russia. So I think that the war in Ukraine and all the losses and all the problems will kind of play into Putin having issues maintaining his power. So I think that is, to me, the likely outcome long term.
but we all know these autocrats hold on to power as hard as possible. So let's look at Mark Milley's chart then. So
I love Mark Milley.
Can you make it a solar chart, please?
Oh, yes, I will. Mm-hmm.
So for those who are watching, Mark Milley is a retired general who made a statement on his retirement that he took an oath to support the Constitution and not any particular person.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been claiming for a bunch of us.
Strong integrity. He's that guy, in my opinion. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure you know already.
So the Mercury retrograde is going to start on his Saturn, his concept of authority. Saturn in Sagittarius, this man does love the Constitution. He believes in it.
Mm-hmm. He really does. And
so it's 20, his Saturn's at 21 Sagittarius, Andy. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, so of course it plays into Trump, to Thiel. And what he said, he was, for those who are not familiar with Mark Milley was the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was therefore the highest ranking military officer in the United States until last year. And he is also the soldier who went with Trump when he had the upside down Bible. And he was an act that he really regretted. And Milley in 2021 said that he is not going to go along with Trump trying to overcome things through January 6th and would not support a would-be Fuhrer. And just real quickly, in Mark Milley's retirement speech, he said, "We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or a dictator or a wannabe dictator." And he kind of said it like that. And I think that because of the connections with the officer class in the United States, I am still, please, still hopeful that there are forces within the United States that will not just blindly go along with a mad power grab by a bunch of people who want to destroy it for their own personal gain and to sell it for scrap. So the United States military has a lot to lose if we get into a war because Trump is denying all of our alliances.
Well,
so I think Milley's chart's a big deal. So he's like my guy, kind of.
Dump's also talked about, court-martialing military.
Court-martialing these people.
But also I noticed Vesta, which in some respects, asteroid Vesta is the state, is opposing his Saturn. He is just like an upholder of the Constitution, the laws, that he thinks his responsibility. Yeah, all those things. I noticed where Mars is going to go retrograde for him, though.
On Juno, which represents agreements, contracts, alliances.
And pretty close to his Uranus too, and he's got a Moon Uranus conjunction. He's kind of not going to take this lying down. He's going to kind of rebel against it, I think, and say, no, we're not doing this.
Well, and notice that the Mars retrograde is going to go almost to his palace, Athena, which is the strategic warrior goddess.
Yeah, and wise justice as well, problem solver. And then I can't help noticing his Nessus, revealer of abuses of power, but Uranus is going back over his Nessus, and I think he's, whereas this can reveal abuses of power by the person, I think this is because Venus is there too. I think he's going to, be on a bit of a mission to reveal abuses of power by others. So,
well, look at Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius on his
Cariclo, Chiron's wife, and Melanie Reinhardt, astrologer, is kind of I call her the central queen, and I've talked to her about this. She sees Cariclo in Aquarius, where it is now again, actually, by the way, as holding space for the healing that's going to come from all the other planets moving in Pluto and things like that. And she is kind of a spinner of grace and a weaver, And, she kind of looked after, in the myth, she looked after Chiron, as while his wound would not heal, she was kind of the midwife until he could take the action to heal himself. So it's a really healing energy. And all of this energy is coming on his Characlo at 0 Aquarius. So.
And that's at the focal point of a yod, or a finger of God, from his Pluto at 0 Virgo and his Mercury at 1 Cancer. Yes. So there's something now that this would say that it could be behind the scenes, very possibly, but he has a big role right now, and there's some huge forces shoving his shoulders, going, do this.
And with Mercury being involved and Pluto, he could be just talking to all the other, obviously he knows everybody else, all the other generals, and, he could just be kind of gathering them together and saying, we can't let this happen, kind of thing. Yeah.
I also notice, as we're looking at that as Mars continues in its retrograde into Cancer, it's going to square his Jupiter in Libra in the solar 4th house. That will really, really, that's fighting for your country, even if it's just advocating.
And of course, that's got connections with many of those other charts that we looked at. Yeah. So
there are there are 2 other things that I noticed that are more short term. One of them is the Sagittarius new moon on December 1st is at 9 degrees Sagittarius, and it's making a grand trine with his Uranus and his Mars, an exact grand trine. So,
and his eclipse is coming up.
And the eclipse in March is going to be on there too. So maybe his role comes to a conclusion at that point. But even if we don't see it, there's something being activated in him about implementing his belief systems
I
his
agree.
Love of country.
And Mars, in some respects, also represents the military. I really kind of think he's going to gather the forces, if you like, and just, say we can't let this happen. Or be a part of gathering the forces, if you like. So yeah, it's kind of huge, really. And I'm a bit wider on orbs than some people are, but I think the Mars station retrograde is activating that grand trine as well. That's the fire grand trine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point.
So, there's a lot going on with him too. I know we don't know where the houses are, but there's just so much happening. One little aside is he has a North Node in Libra at 29 Libra. And I work with the Venus star point collectively as well, which is, where the Sun and Venus meet every 9.5 months. And on October the 22nd, 2022, we had the first Venus star point in Libra for over 100 years. And we're now under a Libra star point. And that was right on his North Node, his kind of purpose, potential, whatever you want to call it in life. He wants peace. He wants, to kind of restore balance and order.
My limited understanding of high-ranking people in the military is they want to conserve their resources. They do not want to go sending troops into battle and have them being slaughtered. They want to keep their resources.
Yeah, I think that's
absolutely. And the other thing is they will have fail-safe processes in place. If this, then this. So there are existing protocols for all sorts of different contingencies. So identifying a situation, if they saw that the United States was being taken down a certain path, if it met certain criteria, that might kickstart and initiate a response pattern. And I think the fact that Milley and the current Secretary of Defense and a lot of these high-ranking and recently retired high-ranking military officers seem to be sort of in agreement here, understandably, looking at Trump, that there's sort of a readiness for that if it should come to be. That's why I think that the officer class, United States military, is really critical piece into what is likely to play out, and also why I think that it doesn't just go click, 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 straightforward, easy. I think there is behind the scenes wheeling and dealing that's happening, and I think that those things are going to come out over the next couple of months. I guess we'll find out.
And with that Mars going retrograde, I think we're going to see more of Mars as the higher energy of Mars, as kind of defender and protector, rather than everybody always goes, oh, it's war. Well, it's not always. There's more to Mars than that. It's defender and protector as well, and guardian. And his, by the way, his sun, and well, we only know his sun because it's at 28 Gemini, is exactly conjunct Kamala Harris's Venus star point.
And when Mars goes back into Cancer, Mars and Cancer can be defending your home, defending your turf, defending your loved ones, defending your country.
And we're a Cancer country. So whether you know, no matter where you are, his role, I think, is about defending this country.
And he has an archetypal significance, all right? So if you're watching this and going, how do we know anything's happening with him? Well, this suggests that, yeah, something is, but he's the retired head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He is the symbol collectively in our modern mythology for the general that protects, the head one, the high.
And he's already spoken out about some things. He's not, he may be retired, but he's not retired from thinking and speaking. Okay, so any more thoughts before we leave? I think we're all going to continue to look at all these charts and look at the transits. I know this week we kind of mostly stayed in what's coming up in December, because I think we all agree this is a really pivotal point, that 6th, 7th, and then leading up to the full moon after the Sagittarius new moon. But we've still got things happening after that, which we can look at in future. But any last thoughts?
I'd like to go back to what Andy said at the beginning. There's a lot going on that we're not being shown. There's a lot going on that we will not know for a while, in whatever way. All right. Do look at what you do have control over, and hang out with people that you care about, and build networks and communities, and do stuff that makes you feel like, okay, this is my life. I can put my feet down. You look up and go, all right, my roof is intact. I have food, and if you want to take an approach of prepare for the worst and hope for the best, I'm not at that stage yet. I'm still in, I'm making my world as nice and happy as I can, and I keep gravitating to experiences with other people that are just magical. And I actually say out loud, this is the world I want to live in. So find that, go to that energy, and maybe you'll be meeting with friends online. Maybe you'll be doing stuff with some people. Maybe you'll be making a new group that is your collective. Find experiences that say, this is the world I want to live in, and please go enjoy them.
Oh,
and don't bring up politics at Thanksgiving.
I could not agree more with you, Kathy. And I talk about self-care all the time, and narrowing it down to doing all the gratitude for what you already have, and that regarding that prepare for the worst thing. I'm like, well, how do you know what the worst is? How do you know exactly what's going to happen? And also whenever people go, we're doomed, I'm going, ask yourself, what does that mean? Humanity has been through some really terrible times, and what does we're doomed mean? So set intention to see the world you want to live in. I agree.
And I think that plays into Pluto Venus at 0 Aquarius, just what Kathy's talking about. I completely agree with that, and I'm trying to do that in my own life too. I think that people are going to find their people. They want to be in love. They want to be happy. They want to be nesting. They want to decorate, whatever that is.
Yeah.
The world's still going to go on. It is unlikely. What was fascinating throughout my career is that if I would predict things that were going to be inconvenient, nobody wanted to hear that.
Yeah.
But if you predicted something that was like the end of the world, which I would never do, then people were down with that. They don't want to have small disruptions. They either want it to be super easy or the apocalypse. I think that this is an inconvenient period, but good things can grow out of conflict. Good things can grow. Not every square is a bad thing in astrology. It may be a catalyst for you to make a lot of adjustments and positive changes. I think that there's a lot of good things coming, and I'm not convinced that Trump gets this Project 2025 world is exactly the way they think. I believe that there are still more good people here than bad. I still think there are a lot of factors that will play out to mitigate this and try to keep it somewhat in balance. And I just want people not to get too crazy and try to find a happy space. And I think that Pluto, Venus, Zero Aquarius with Ceres is sort of emblematic of that. And I'm still in my happy, as the old Southerners would say, in my happy space, honey. So that's where I'm going to stay. And I'm not going to try to go off of that.
Yeah.
Hold out the space for a miracle. Just hold out the space for a miracle, because I see one coming.
And
I think good things are coming. I mean, I really do, in spite of it all.
But I also believe we can help it along using a little mind magic of
absolutely.
As Kathy said, just look at the world you'd like to live in and vision that, for sure. Yeah. And like you said, Andy, most people just want to live their lives with their loved ones and just kind of feel safe and secure and happy as possible. So focus on that. Go local first. All right, everybody. Yeah. All right, everybody. So I hope you've enjoyed this again. Please subscribe. Please subscribe to Professional Aquarian on YouTube as well, which is Cassie, where this video will go as well. And follow Andrew Brewer on Facebook if you want to follow him. He's not really anywhere else, are you? You're just on Facebook.
Not really. I try to keep semi-low profile. And next time, I'm actually going to write the charts down so I know what you're talking about, so I don't have to try to hear them. I always think, I can pick up enough. But if I know the charts in advance, I'm just going to write down what they are so I can see them, because I can't see them on the screen well enough to read them.
Or I can send you.
Thank you for inviting me again. And I hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving and a happy December. And
yes, happy Thanksgiving and all the things if you celebrate, because of course some people are global as well. So, all right, everybody, peace out. See you next time.